President appearing to throw his support behind Moore. And could this be a real game changer in the race? Let's bring in Republican Congressman Mike Walker of North Carolina, who chairs the Republican Study Committee. Let's focus a little bit on the politics of this, if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I think from my perspective, and maybe there's a little bit of a pastoral perspective, I spent nearly 2 decades as a minister. My thoughts are this: there are no criminal convictions, there's no criminal charges that have been made. However, if you listen and even watch the interview from a couple of days ago from Ms. Gorfman, there is a little bit of credibility in these charges, and it creates some concern. However, you have to stop short from imposing from a federal standpoint. Maybe you could say it this way: the jury in this case is Alabama, and the people of Alabama should make the final decision.
Right, but I mean, politically going forward, what is the most dangerous move here if we want to kind of take that tack and examine that issue? Because if Republicans, usher into Congress someone who is carrying, these kind of questions and allegations with them, does it damage the party, even though the party did not on a national level support Roy Moore? I don't know that a lot of people are going to make make that distinction going forward.
Sure. Melissa, that's a great question, but I hope that we are not looking at these kinds of situations from a political perspective first. When there are victims in a situation, allegedly in this case, that should override a long-term forecasting as far as what's better for Republicans or what's better for Democrats. Of course, in reality, this does change the course, whether it's tax reform, whether it's other issues that are part of the agenda, both from the administration as well as House Republicans and Senate as well. This is a huge factor. But we do not cloud our judgment from a federal standpoint or from just a humanitarian standpoint that we override decisions or behavior based on what's good for a specific party.
Well, one of the things you said is that not a lot of people have confidence in Mitch McConnell to organize things at this point, and that's sort of confusing the issue.
Yes, we've had an on record of questioning some of the decisions. Specifically, you could even say Mitch McConnell's decision to spend $4 million on the current Senate candidate. There were other people running, but it was a bad decision. And I think at some point, the majority leader in the Senate needs to be held accountable for his actions and poor decision making himself.
So what does that mean?
Well, that means ultimately either he can organize and lead. For example, we've got close to 300 pieces of legislation that's been passed out of the House in the Senate that has not been taken up by the majority leader. This is something he needs to engage. And we've already seen one failure when it comes to repealing the ACA. If we can't get tax reform across the Senate, I guess the threshold, then I think it's well within our rights to call for new leadership.
You said that you found the victims who came forward credible. So does that mean that the president takes a political hit for coming out and supporting someone who has accusers that are credible?
Well, I think that's certainly his decision to make. Where I would agree is that this is left up and should be the people of Alabama making this final decision. If you have, whether it's the House or Senate intervening in these kinds of races, when there is nothing on the books, I think that sets a bad precedent. However, I'm also happy to be on record saying if you listen to Ms. Gorfman or others, there's some of these things check the boxes of credibility.
Right.
Listen, God's redemption is certainly the grace is for all of us, but that's not tethered to party lines. We need to be consistent. We look back in the early 90s how some of the ladies who charged former President Bill Clinton with some of the concerns that they had were defamed and even attempted to be destroyed. We just need to be consistent when we look at these situations.
I hear what you're saying. You didn't really answer the question about will the president pay a political price for supporting him. Do you want to take another crack at that or pass on that one?
Well, I mean, should he pay a political price?
I don't know that he's come out and endorsed him. Go ahead. Yeah.
I do think that he, from what I understand in the brief clip that I saw from President Trump yesterday, is that he was saying that at this point, Mr. Moore has denied these charges. So I think that's where his thinking is until he has other information. I think that he's okay with moving forward.
Okay.
Like I said, the place where we do intersect is that the people of Alabama should be able to decide ultimately whether Roy Moore or Doug Jones is the next senator from Alabama.
Congressman Walker, thank you.